Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Thank you for attending a Scale Up Milwaukee Meet the Masters series event. I'm so excited about today. This is going to be a fun conversation, if only because the topic is quite a bit more accessible than the product of some of the other companies we've talked to. A couple of housekeeping things. First off, if your cell phone is turned on, that's a great thing because it'll allow you to take pictures and write notes and tweet and send Facebook posts and so on. But I will ask that you make sure that it's on silent. The rule is if your cell phone rings, I get to answer it and I get to buy whatever that person is selling. It's a deal, great. So the second thing is that I want to make sure you all know this is an ongoing series and we're excited to announce some of the other speakers we have lined up for the rest of the year. You'll receive emails about it. I'm excited. We're going to do a bunch of these. We're going to have a lot of fun. Also know that on June 6th, we're going to host what we're calling the Celebration of Growth. It's going to be the Scale Up Milwaukee annual members meeting. At that event, which is at 8 a.m., we're going to have awards. We're going to have a really exciting keynote speaker named Justin Mortara, who is president and CEO of Mortara Instruments, a fabulous, growth story that is worthy of our celebration. So if you haven't got your tickets for that breakfast, go to our site or check any of our emails and we'll have a link to register. It's $25. Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
good. Thank you. I am excited to present a conversation with Russ Klisch, the president and CEO of Lakefront Brewery. Good morning, Russ.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
We're so excited to have you. So while I think everyone knows about Lakefront and about you, why don't you give us the 1-minute version of what is Lakefront Brewery?
Lakefront Brewery is an innovative company in Milwaukee that makes beer. We try to do things fun. We try to have entertainment. We try to be part of the city. We try to have showing what's inside the bottle. Our company, the way we work, and our culture around there is also what's on the inside of the bottle we try to have. So we have both, where the bottle try to represent our culture and fun.
So one of the surprises about studying you is there's a word that's used consistently that we don't often associate with breweries and with beer making, and that's innovation. Yeah. I'm really interested in how innovation became part of your DNA. And I mean that for you personally. What happened in your childhood that encouraged you to be an innovator?
That's a good question. It goes back to me probably doing the picture puzzles or something every Christmas when I got the thing. You always hear these statistic that anybody who's ever given an erector set becomes a structural engineer or something. I don't know. It was just to me that you always try to invent or you try to bring up something that is not out there, where you feel I always feel it's best to be an innovator, not an imitator.
So this weird thing happens. You go to college, you go to UW, Eau Claire, and you're clearly a smart guy, you're an engineer, and you and your brother have this wild idea, which it's fair to call it crazy, right?
Yeah, you would think so. I mean, we were trying to do things on a small scale back then, so I didn't think we were risking too much, as compared to some of the startups right now. Mm-hmm. But we couldn't find anybody to invest in it, so it was all with our own money that we grew.
Tell me about the moment that you said, wow, we can actually do this.
It was probably early on when we were doing home brewing, and we started making beer and we started winning awards. Mm-hmm. And you made beer, you won awards, you made more beer, you won awards. Your friends started telling us you should open up a brewery, and when you're 20-something years old, you think it's good advice. But but you do it, and from my engineering background, it's like, well, you just kind of sit there and you feel how you can get some pieces in line. Like, we've been innovative with a lot of our products, but we're also very, I felt, innovative on how we built the place and how, from a financial standpoint, how we were able to, build a brewery inexpensively.
And tell me about that.
Well, I know one day a food writer walked into our place and said, what you got here is a Frankenstein operation, because every piece of equipment had lived and died a previous life, and it was true. We had, every bulk dairy milk tank that you could find, any dairy that went out of business. You went to the auction, you went to restaurant auctions, you bought it from there, you just brought it on back, and then you start thinking, once you see this piece of equipment, what could it be used for? And you're basically, I remember back in the day, you'd buy, it would be like $1 a gallon for a tank. And so if you have a 3,000 gallon tank, it'd be like $3,000, where today this tank would cost like $40,000, $50,000.
Wow.
And so back, when we first started out, we did everything on the cheaper, down low, but that's how you had to do it. You didn't have much choice. But you're able to make it work, and that was the thing that I think the difference between us and maybe others, where you actually put the time and the thought and everything else into it, and how you can engineer it and still make good beer.
But what I'm missing is there's a point at which you all are making beer at home, and there had been a little bit of a culture of home brewing, where you transition from being a large, what we'll call a large-scale home brewer, to buying equipment and becoming a manufacturer. What gave you the audacity to do such a thing?
Well, it was just, I heard somebody say when I was younger that if you ever get together with a couple young people early in your career, and you have a good idea and you work at it, you can make it go. You can make a livelihood out of it. Mm-hmm. And essentially that's what happened. Essentially, the two people were my brother and myself that were always there. We had some other people, some employees, they come and go, but we always had us two, and that always kind of formed the bedrock of the company. And you just kind of progress from there. But then when you just have faith in yourself, and you never put yourself to a point where it would be, financial trouble. You always pushed yourself to a limit to how much you could almost spend, but then you never really kind of went over certain boundaries. And I guess that's the one thing that I also feel I kind of did well, was where I wasn't able to. I never got myself into huge, even though I did, take out a lot of loans and a lot of credit card loans and things on that sort. I never felt I was to the point where I'd ever have to go bankrupt.
Mm-hmm. So don't bet the farm.
Yeah, I didn't. I bet most of the farm, but I didn't bet the entire farm.
So, because these are always fun stories, tell me about a time when you lost the faith, you're doubting, you're sort of at a crossroads. You have to make a big make or break decision. How did you go about choosing which path?
Well, there was a couple times. One, I went and I bought our current building down on Commerce Street. If anybody's seen it, it's a big Cream City brick building. And, the bank gave us some money to go in there, and we went and we spent it. And, and everybody, we're selling everything we can make. And the bank doesn't give me any more money. We're not making any profit. Essentially, I'm taking everything, I'm putting it back in the brewery. And it came to the point like, well, how am I ever going to get money? And then back in the early 2000s, you get mailed almost every day, sign up for this credit card. You got $10,000. And so I made the decision back then that I would start, taking out lines of credit on credit cards. And I got over 200,000 buying, but I bought all equipment with it. But there's other things.
Wait, I want to make sure I understood this correctly. You spent nearly $200,000 on credit cards.
Yeah. And so,
all right.
But the one thing I remember, I talk about betting the farm. The building I had I almost got for free from the city, mm-hmm. and it was assessed at $800,000, and I had loans for like $200,000-300,000. Mm-hmm. And so to take another $200,000, I felt if I ever had to sell the thing, I'd still be in the black. And so I never really felt I was going that much, but even though it was a very unorthodox thing to do.
So I want to remind you all that this is meant to be a conversation, so if and when you have questions or concerns about spending $200,000 on a credit card, please speak up.
Well, I do have one, thanks. So that was in the early 2000s. When was the out of the garage going into business brewing beer? When did that happen?
1987, December 2nd.
Okay, so you're 15.
Yeah, we, I don't know if I should tell you just brief
Yes,
history,
please.
but-
So founded in '87.
Yeah, so we were home brewing. We found an old bakery building down the street from us. And we decided to build as a 55-gallon stainless steel drum brewery. I went out and bought it was basically a used tank yard. We found a bunch of 55-gallon stainless steel drums. We found some guys who could weld fittings on them and everything. And I got some old, actually, tanks from the old Schlitz brewery. And so we built a system that would basically make 3 half barrels of beer. So we just brewed on weekends. I was working at John's Controls as an engineer at the time, making automotive batteries. And so we just started from then. We just worked weekends, delivered beer during the week. My brother was a Milwaukee police officer. 88, we hired our first employee, and then we just brought it in. Then we kept on going on this search for equipment, how to bring something in, and you found bulk dairy milk tanks that refrigerated, and you could brew beer into them. And then we found some other used equipment, and we just kept on growing. And then in 1999, we moved into our current location on Commerce Street. It's City of Milwaukee. Yeah. So we're the first building on Commerce Street that was functional.
Yeah.
A couple other important milestones. 1992, they started manufacturing and distributing a fruit beer, which I didn't even know was a thing. It was the first fruit beer of its kind since Prohibition. And I'm excited to hear about why you decided to brew that. 1996, first certified organic beer. Then again, 98, 99, moved to Commerce Street. And 2004, a very big moment for the company, started brewing the gluten-free beer, which was the first of its kind in the nation. There's lots of story and mythology around them having to bend, federal regulations in order to make this a real thing. But you'll get a sense, all these firsts, even as he was the first on Commerce Street, that innovation and pioneering are really in the DNA of the company. I'm really interested in this idea because you're talking to Scale at Milwaukee about why you continue to grow and what has been your motivating principle to pursue growth. You didn't have to go to Commerce Street and open the restaurant, and you didn't have to do the tours. Why keep growing?
We'll keep growing. To me, I just find it, an opportunity, opportunity to continue placing your company in financial straits that are sound. Anytime that you can find something and make it grow, and it's great for your employees, it's great for you. It's easier on your employees the more you grow, the safer equipment and places and other things you can put in there, the more professional equipment you can you can get, and you can pay people more professionally, and you don't have as much PR or HR problems. And so to me, it's always great to get innovation and you stay relevant. I think what Benjamin Franklin said something, when you stop innovating, you stop, or something like that, I'm paraphrasing. Mm-hmm. But it basically means that once you stop trying to grow, stop trying to innovate, your company is basically doomed.
So I love that, and you briefly mentioned it, you've got a really strong take on cultivating culture and how to best utilize people. And one of the conversations that we've had consistently is how talent plays such an important role in the growth of a company. Mm-hmm. Tell me how you go about making sure that the people you bring into Lakefront are the right people.
In the past, we would just meet them and go through a small interview. Now we do have an HR department. That was one thing we've kind of grown into. I shouldn't say it's a full-time. I rent an HR lady who comes in once a week on Thursdays, and she'll there for half a day. And she now we have a handbook. We didn't have that before. Mm-hmm. But before it was just like to get the feel of the individual. And not everybody works out. I remember there was a time it seemed like 50% of the people I'd hire was like the ones that you could tell that really, really were decent. And then you just had to make sure you let them go, or send them on a different path. Mm-hmm. If they didn't. But I guess it just becomes known to you at a, within a short period of time if this person's going to work out or not work out, and you try to do, try to prevent as much of that as possible.
But did you have a sense of a certain flavor or spark that would compel you to bring someone into your team?
I guess just whether you think they're going to fit well, whether they're going to be a team player. You can try to tell and see if a person's on his arrogant side or more conservative, or just not more lively. I mean, just like with our tours, if you go to our tours, everything's fun, and so you try to have more people that are coming, and try to have more fun in individuals there, and it just seems to have worked.
It worked for you. So I found a quote, and I really liked it. We're the vision. When you make a company, you'd like to do everything, but you can't. And I love that coming from an engineer. And so you have to pass off certain things. We've been blessed to find people who have a similar palate or can make the recipes. That's one hallmark of being an owner, being able to pass off the job to someone new. So what I hear from you is that you have a capacity for sort of attracting and deploying talent well, but you might not even be thinking about it that definitively.
Yeah, well, you've been just doing it all your life, so maybe we've done well, obviously, throughout the years, and how we always just kind of, it's a given to us that of course this is what you do.
So what's in this handbook?
The handbook is just basically all the rules. I mean, it used to be we didn't have any rules, and for a long time I thought it wasn't good to have rules.
Yeah.
Because then all of a sudden that kind of wrecks everything, and you just kind of do it. But then it got to a point where you want to make it fair for everybody, or this person saying, well, this guy got this, but I'm not getting it, and why can't I have it? And so then you end up, and so I mean the rules are like how much vacation days you get, when everybody's off, when do you get overtime,
Does it
what
determine
health care benefits.
what people wear?
No, I don't. Well, that's when I just verbal do. I tell people if they're working in the beer hall, they have to have something that says Lakefront on, so in case a customer comes in, they know that it's there. You want to have, usually I want them to wear a collar. That makes it a little more professional. It's for the managers. Some of the bartenders or tour guides don't have to do that. But
so you've made this culture. You've made a culture both inside of your organization, but you've also, in a lot of ways, you're kind of the brewery of Milwaukee. You're iconic. Was that on purpose or?
No. You mean for what we do here, I just kind of, like when we started the restaurant and the beer hall and the building, a lot of people said, oh, you should have a German theme to it, because we had German equipment, we had German beer, and make a German beer. Our beer hall basically is a lot German, but if you go there, we're not a German place, we're a Milwaukee place. You come there, you got a Cream City brick building. Breweries are part of Milwaukee. We don't dress anybody in some sort of festive clothes from another country. Everybody it's a Milwaukee place. The food that we have here is mostly Milwaukee type food: the brats, the beer, the cheese, and all that sort of thing. So the fish fry, the polka band, those are all things most people here in town have grown up with. So if anybody comes in from out of town, and they want to, where do we go to see something that's local, have local flavor? That's what we do. And so I keep on thinking about that. I never really thought about it at first because I just did what I thought was good. But then all of a sudden I realized this is what we're building. We're building a Milwaukee place.
So I have to tell you that I moved here a couple of years ago, and maybe a few months into my time in Milwaukee, I went to Fish Fry. And there's this polka band playing, and there are families and fathers dancing with their babies.
Yeah.
And I moved here from New York City, and what fascinated me was that the excitement and the energy, it wasn't anyone being ironic. People knew the words to the songs the polka band were singing in German. People had regular seats. There's communal seating. I sat down, my wife and I sat down, and a lovely couple that we were with had really strong opinions about which fish we should order, and they directed us. I mean, so again, what I feel is that there is such a strong identity, such a strong self-awareness, a culture that you have created in this place, and it just pervades everything you do, the innovation, the experience at a fish fry, the fun of the tours, and it seems so easy for you.
Yeah, well, it is. I always kind of joke about this, but it's true. Like with the tours, and when I first started doing a tour, I gave a tour like I was a science teacher. I didn't know anything. I thought that's why the reason people wanted to come on down was to learn how to make beer. And my brother really didn't know anything technical about beer, so he just told jokes and gave out beer first. Everybody took his tour, nobody took mine. And so that kind of, went from there, and so then you learn, people are here to be entertained, people want to have fun. That's the reason why they come to you. They want to have fun, they want to drink beer. And those are the two main things, and so that's what you kind of focus on. Getting good entertainment, so that after that, then you start learning, well, you should really have is, people from, comedy sports or, comics that run around or theater people doing the tours. And they all come up with their own act. And they all, I never wrote a script for any of them. I mean, I think I'm probably one of the few brewery owners in the country who've never done that. So everybody has their own act. So you can go there, I think, 10 times and see 10 different acts. And people tell me that, and that's great, because compared to other places where you go there and you got something on a screen, you watch and you sit down, and after you've seen it once, you don't need to go back. But that culture from over there, the restaurant, that is then spread to, the waitresses, to the kitchen staff, to have fun, to, even our brewers.
How many brewers do you have now?
We have what I would consider, we have 4 people that can run the brew kettle on a consistent basis. I got 2 others who can jump in at any time, who are their supervisors if people get sick or anything on that sort. And then you have cellar people, and you got the people running the bottling line.
And when did you stop being the brewer?
I don't think I brewed a batch of beer since '92.
Really?
Yeah, some back then. I think I brewed the first batch in a new kettle that we brought in 2000 or '99, just to make sure it worked well. But that was the last time I did. I did some other formulations of beer.
So let's talk about this fruit beer.
Did you?
I have a question.
Yes, Joe.
Before we get to your question. So let's take a step back, because you started out talking about we're an innovative company that makes beer. And you just told a story about, so you own the company with your brother. You do the tour this way, he does it that way. They couldn't be more different, right?
Yeah.
And you look at him and say, your idea is better.
Yeah.
And now you just said, I haven't brewed a batch beer since 1992, except for the test batch. So part of your growth story is you as the owner saying, I don't have all the good ideas, right? I mean,
Yeah.
there's a through line there.
Well, it is. You have to hire people and bring people in that are smarter than you, and so you just can't sit there and be arrogant about it, saying, "Well, it's my way." I mean, there's certain things you have to do, like quality and things of that sort, where you put your foot down and say, "This is the way it's got to be," and you don't take anything else. But you look for innovation, you look for any other idea, and once you get it, you go with it.
But how do you know the difference between a new idea and a good new idea?
I mean, not all good ideas work. You just have to sit there, and I guess you just got a batting average. You look at it and you size it up, and you're the judge and jury, and you sit back and you think, well, this is going to work or it's not. You have a lot of people coming up, and some of my ideas all didn't work either from my innovations. But
you want to tell us about any?
You talked about the fruit beer, and before that was pumpkin beer. That was the first thing we did. We had a yeah. And so you had pumpkin beer, that was a big hit. They did the fruit beer, that was a big hit. And then I read about smoke beer. And actually, if you ever go to Bamberg, Germany, it's fabulous. I've been there. It really tastes good. And there was an old Ukrainian butcher down the street from us in River West. And I thought, he used to smoke his meats. And I went up to him. I said, "Can you smoke some malt for me?" I told him about this. And he goes, "Yeah, I'd love to." So I give him a bag of malt, a whole 50-pound bag, and he smokes it. And he gives it back to me, and I brew the batch of beer with it. And the beer ends up tasting like sausage. I didn't realize he smoked it with his sausage.
Is that good or bad?
Yeah. No, it was bad. I don't know, it seems like you have all the food groups in Wisconsin in one drink, but it's... but no, it was. People didn't understand that one, sausage beer. But so that one didn't go anywhere. So that was like one innovation you tried coming out with.
That sounds a little regretful. Like they should love it.
They should, yeah. It'd be good, but.
Please.
That's Julia.
Question. So who came up with the concept, or how did you develop this whole Black Friday beer, which is like kind of a cult thing?
Yeah. There's a couple things that happened. One, we had our lady that runs our tours, Chris, George, and she's told me, she says, what you got to do is you got to have a tour on Black Friday, 8 o'clock. And all the people are out shopping, they're all done shopping, they want to take a tour, and they'll come here and they'll go home and go to sleep. And so I think, okay, we'll do it. So I put an ad in the Shepherd Express, and we, 8 o'clock on Friday morning, I give the first tour. So I go down there, and I get about 30 people on the tour at 8 o'clock in the morning. And so I asked, how many people here have gone shopping? It's like 0. I don't know if they wanted to get away from their relatives or whatever, but they just wanted to get out of the house. So it's like, 8 o'clock in the morning, Friday, 30 people show up for a tour. And so I'm thinking, well, people want to get out. And my marketing guy was bugging me. A lot of these breweries were doing is these, there was one place like in Indiana, Dark Lord Days, they were having a special big, over-the-top, flavorful beer, and they're selling it for like, $10, $15 a bottle. And so I'm thinking, because he told me they should do it, but the only days we had available were like Saturdays that we could do this since we were working these other days. And we didn't really have a good day for it. And then all of a sudden I'm thinking, well, Black Friday, you could do this beer. And then I Googled Black Friday beer, and the name was not taken, so we trademarked it. And so now we got the trademark on Black Friday beer. And so the next year we came, and we didn't know how it was going to go. We made a bunch of bottles, and a bunch of people showed up, and we've done it now like 5 years in a row where we just get these huge lines of people, and we get national attention. And there's certain things I didn't realize either was that we're one of the few things on Black Friday that is during the day that people have huge lines for, because the media would come out like crazy because they could take pictures, especially the morning TV shows. By that time, almost every other store had their sales. There was nothing else to show, and everybody thought it was great. So we got great media from it. I mean, pictures of that, went all over the United States. We've had in papers.
George?
I don't know if everyone's familiar, but I love your My Turn series of beers, and I was wondering where that might have come from.
I'll take credit for that one.
Would you mind explaining the My Turn?
Okay, yeah.
Program.
Well, maybe I'll take a step back first. What a lot of breweries were doing is what they call a one-off series. You have your seasonal series where you have it out for like 3 months or something, and then you have the one-off series where all of a sudden it hits the shelf, and it's like, you don't buy it now, you're not going to be able to buy this thing. And so then it generates a lot of buzz. Usually they're bigger beers, more special stuff. And I was watching some of the breweries that were doing this, and they all had, to me, like the same personality behind their beer, and you could tell the same person was designing it. And when you run the brewery, everybody comes up to you all the time and says, we should brew this style of beer. This is my favorite beer, and we should really brew this one. And so I'm thinking, how do we get some personality in this beer and maybe do a one-off series? And so then I started letting all my employees brew a style of beer from seniority, so that the oldest employee there brewed it first. And so we started, now we're on number 22. We come out with every 3 months, we come out with one of these styles of beer. So we brew one batch, and so it's out there, and people love it because it's a real person. They have like their opening, and a lot of people know them, and they have there's one night they all go to their favorite bar, and everybody from the brewery shows up. Their parents come, all their friends. It's like a wedding almost for them. They have their wine, they're receiving, and they talk about it, and everybody takes pictures with them, and it's fun. Everybody's like counting their days at the brewery about when they get to have their turn on this beer. In fact, it's kind of interesting. The one that's out right now is a smoked beer. And so well. It was done well. It didn't taste like sausage. But the next one's Dylan, Dortmunder.
The next one is?
Dylan. We brewed a Dortmunder. It's a German style, lighter style. It would be good for summer.
So you've also done the all Wisconsin beer.
Yes.
How'd that come about?
That came about from, I just wanted to try to grow hops and grow barley in the state. Winemakers use a word called terroir, where it affects the flavor of the grape. You can take the same grapevine and plant it in North Carolina, New York State, California, and make wine from it, and all three wines would be completely different. And they talk about, the terroir, how much, moisture's in there, how much clay's in the soil, how much sun it gets, and the temperature and all, and that affects the taste and flavor. And I thought it was the same way with, maybe with hops or barley. And, also at one time, Wisconsin was a great hop growing state. It was the largest hop growing state in the country back around 1900. And then of course they grew barley here. That's one of the reasons Wisconsin was such a great brewing center. All the raw ingredients, ice, everything was here. And so I thought, well, we should try to bring this back. It'd be fun. And so we got some local farmers to grow hops, and then we got the barley. And the one thing I've also noticed is that certain Belgian breweries would have their own style of yeast. It was be airborne. They wouldn't even put any yeast in there. It would just open up like the louvers on the side of their building, and natural yeast would come on in and ferment the beer. And I talked to a guy from Northern Brewer who had a PhD in microbiology from Purdue. He was running a homebrew supply store. And so I asked him, well, could you ever find a local strain of yeast? And he said, sure. And I forgot about it. 2 months later, he shows up at my doorstep and gets some of my Wisconsin malt. It's never left the state, been malted in the state. He took it back to his place, crushed it up, put in a glass of water, nothing else, and it started to grow. And then he was able to single cell the yeast from the bacteria in there, and then he did some test batches on a couple of these yeasts. Some didn't work out well, but he found one that did work well, and ended up being similar to a German Weiss style beer. Had a nice clove flavor. And that's ended up being Wisconsinite, which has been our largest selling summer seasonal ever.
And so one of the things I most enjoy about listening to Russ is you just sort of hear the engineer talking. Very process-driven approach. So, please.
So you've done a lot of trendy things with the gluten-free, the all-local. Were those things that were important to you, or was it more to take advantage of the current market?
It was I'd say both. I mean, we're the first organic brewery too. Mm-hmm. And so that was important to me, the fact that, from being kind of environmentalist, that you sit there and you try to promote organic farming. With the gluten-free one, I never heard of this. I got a phone call from a doctor, of all places, Houston, and he asked me if I could do this beer for him, because he thought if I could do an organic beer, I could do a gluten-free beer. And he told me 1 out of every 500 people in this country are something called a celiac. I never heard that term before. And I'm thinking, well, that's a lot of beer drinkers. 1 out of every 5. You can get that market, you're pretty good, and there's nobody else doing this. And I asked my head brewer about this, and he said his dad was a celiac. And he never really drank a beer with them. And he said, this would be fabulous if I could, make this. I thought for sure he thought it'd be crazy. It's like, why am I going to want to try to make a beer out of sorghum and rice? And so, there, all of a sudden I found that, there's people out there that have a need. So and it was also a financial thing. If I could get this going, I could make some beer. And it was been a financial standpoint, it was huge success for us. But to me, that was kind of a combination of both of them. You don't go into something without the idea of having a profit off of it, but you also have to. To me, there's plenty of opportunity out there to follow both. Be profitable and follow your own instincts. That's good for people.
Please.
Russ, your neighborhood has grown since you've been there. You said you were one of the first
Yes.
buildings that was doing it. And that neighborhood has grown tremendously, and now the river on both sides has just grown tremendously. What's been the impact of all that growth, if any?
Well, I would assume that some people now and then come over to our place. There's also the impact that when we first went down there, it wasn't the best neighborhood. And so that, the fact I have all the other people, there's more eyes on the street, it has helped, you know, tremendously for people coming on down for both the tours and the fish fry and everything on that sort, where at one time people were kind of scared to come on down. But, you know, so I think, you know, we've helped both, you know, each and other on that respect. But no, it's been, and also their positive factor. I mean, if I had to say like one thing that really propelled our growth was the fact I got that building for almost next to nothing. The city was going to tear it down if I didn't get it. And so either they had to spend a ton of money tearing it down, or I was going to, you know, basically give it to me. And so once I got that, all of a sudden I had something that was valuable and I could borrow against it. And then I was able to borrow against it basically, and then take that, you know, money and equipment, and then I was able to grow the brewery, which then made me more money, which I was able to put back in. So if I didn't get that building and have that, you know, kind of momentous opportunity to borrow against, I don't think I'd be where I am today.
So with a,
Actually, I have
please,
a question.
yes.
Russ, you were saying earlier how, you know, you've had a lot of growth, and I think it's amazing to see the kind of growth you've had over the years with how your operations just grown. What kind of challenges, though, have you seen with that? Because obviously there's always been that mystique and kind of there's an eclectic feel with your brand as you grow. Is there a balance to kind of not lose that as new craft beers are coming into the picture? It's, you know, with growth, you're trying to balance that culture. I'm just kind of curious what kind of, how you've had to balance that a little bit.
Yeah, it is kind of a tricky balance between, you know, growing too fast, you know, or maintaining it, or not growing quick enough. There's, you know, I have my own formulation in my head about how frequently you must come out with new products. You know, there's been other breweries to me, I remember back in the 90s saying you just got to concentrate on 5, don't bring out anything new. And those guys have all kind of went by the wayside. You have to come out, you know, like right now, we're coming out with a beer almost once a month. There's something either new or seasonal. And that's what everybody wants. You walk in any store, anybody walks into a beer bar, it's like, what's new? What haven't I had? What, you know, and so everybody wants to do that. And so when you have your name on something new, it makes it relevant. And you know, it's not only that, it's like how fast you can grow. I know I've had employees, you know, criticize me often that I don't stink enough money into the building or try to go. A couple times I was trying to go down to the valley one time to brew make a building, but the price tag got over $20 million, and I knew I couldn't afford it. And I thought I was going to get some money coming in from the government, but all of a sudden I found out that wasn't going to happen. And then I'm buying a lot next to me. I still own that, but I'm, as several bankers have told me, I'm a conservative brewer, and you know, and actually going and putting my money into it. You just have this feeling of, to me, the building kind of, or the brewery tells you when it really needs something. You don't let other people tell you. It kind of talks to you in a way. It's kind of weird, but trying to say that, but it does. You know, you really kind of, all of a sudden you see certain signs that say, I really need to expand. I really need to have this. And I wait for that to occur before I, you know, really put the big money down on anything.
So we're in a room with a number of business owners, and you're having a conversation with Scale Up Milwaukee, and we care deeply about growth. So if given an opportunity, and you have that opportunity right now, to communicate something that would be instructive or inspiring about growth, what would you say?
I would just say that, you know, what the difference between me or anybody and their contemporaries in their industry is off of, you know, either innovation or opportunities that they get, that come to you. You know, I think I talked about this the other day, but opportunities, you know, you have things like, you know, like for us was like, you know, you've everything like from Bernie Brewer's Chalet to, you know, the Black Friday to things that you get. All of a sudden, if you look, go in our place, we got lights in our place from over 100 years ago, they were from the Plankington Hotel, the arts and crafts lights. They're literally our museum pieces. And I read an article in the paper from Whitney Gould saying that the city was auctioning these things off. They didn't want them. And so we ended up going down and buying them. And so I think about myself, I think about anybody else in the town could have gone down there and do this. But then you sat there and thought, well, these are museum pieces. This is something that really fits your place well. And so you go and you do it, you have the opportunity. And so there's certain opportunities that come to you, and then there's certain innovations that, once, they come to you like they never stop calling you. That you see and you feel that, it's in your mind. It's like the gluten-free beer, where it's like, it's 500 people, you got this. And I got some other things I'm going to be doing this next year. So my innovations have not stopped. I still have fun stuff coming up.
Is there anything you want to tell us about?
No. And I don't know if it's going to work yet, so I don't want to sit there and say anything. I mean, it's like,
Yeah.
and I'll be,
So, Russ, I have a question not about beer, but about the bells.
okay.
Could you tell us about your bells project you're doing with Michael Horn?
Yes. One thing I've done since I've been kind of successful, I thought maybe I'll try to give something back to the community. And somebody mentioned to me, Peter, the concierge at the Pfister, started talking to me about bells and about how Milwaukee has lots of bells, but nobody rings them. And that's one big difference between our city and other cities. You look at what, everybody has a city, and here we embrace our Cream City brick buildings and other, we're one older town in the nation, so when people come here, they enjoy this. And so it's like, well, what characteristics can we have of our town that will stand out if a visitor comes, or it's something that's nice. And so we have all these bells in the church steeples, other places, not all religious. You got City Hall, like a lot of fire stations have bells. And you start looking around, everybody's got them, but nobody rings them. And so we started this project where we're trying to get money to renovate all the bells in town. It used to be like on New Year's Eve, everybody would ring the bell. That's where you get ringing in the new year. Comes from. And so everybody go out there, ring the bell. And in Milwaukee, unfortunately, you go down here and you hear a lot of gunshots. Everybody thinks that's what you're supposed to do. And I'm thinking it'd be great if we could ever drown out the gunshots with ringing the bell. And so we have this project we're trying to get some money, we're trying to get a couple bells renovated. And from there, we would be able to, start this going. I just want to try to, bring it to people's forefronts that, we should have that. And every time, you bring them on every hour around town. You can get this downtown. There's several that are starting to ring now. You got City Hall, you got some other ones. And if we can get people doing it, I think it'd be one characteristic our city could have. So that's what we're trying to do. It's kind of infancy, but I think, once people start learning about it and going, it'll start growing.
That's excellent. That's the right word to end on. So in fact, we've taken scalerators as they graduate into the tower at City Hall to ring the bell, and we will be doing that again this year.
All right.
So if you all wouldn't mind, please join me in thanking Russ Klisch, President and CEO of Lakefront Brewery. As we depart, a couple of quick notes. Please do fill out your evaluations, and included on those evaluations is an opportunity to suggest who else you'd like to have a conversation with. And I think Russ brought something special.
Yeah, I do have a couple cases of beer out here. I got our new summer seasonal for us, the El Wisco. And we also have our Lemon Drop Smash series. Smash is an acronym, stands for single malt and single hop. And so there's a lemon drop hop in there. It has kind of a lemony flavor, nice citrus lemon, lighter style beer. Both are summer lighter styles. So I think I'm not sure. I got 48 of each. So if you probably can bring, if you want, at least you can grab one. If you want to grab two, you probably can do that too. Take them home and sample them.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you so much. We'll stick around for some conversation, and good to see y'all.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Russ.
Sure. Hopefully it went well.
Yeah,
That's good. All right.